Yeah, we back with another epic video, bringing out the historical documents and the historical texts directly from the ancestors, not the Europeans. You know how we do it, man. Now, back again with another installment of a multi-part series that I'm producing. In this series, in case you haven't been watching my videos, last week I dropped a video entitled The Legendary Story About the King of Haiti Celebrating Independence Day in 1814. And in that video, I dug up an old newspaper article from over 200 years ago, describing the festivities and the events and the celebrations and the guests and the speeches in great detail. After this video, go check that out if you want to know how black man was partying back in the early 1800s, man. Doing big things, man. Doing big things. And shortly after that, I dropped a video entitled France Sent a Spy to Haiti in 1814, God rest his soul. And in that video, I dug up another newspaper article describing how the French government had sent an agent over to scope out the island. The spy ended up getting caught. He ended up getting locked up. He ended up losing his life. God rest his soul. And in this video, we got another newspaper article, legendary historical material, as you know. And in fact, I'm gonna tell you this, man, I got about over 200 newspaper articles stretching from the years 1807 all the way to 1819. All of these articles were published under the government of King Henry Christophe, as we know, legendary general from the Haitian Revolution, one of the greatest black men to ever walk the earth, the first black billionaire in the Western Hemisphere, the only black man crowned as a king in the Western Hemisphere. Very important figure, man, very important figure. Died as a multi-billionaire, straight out of slavery, born a slave, died a multi-billionaire, a black man that we never really hear about, similar to how we never hear about Marcus Garvey, we never hear about Booker T. Washington, we never hear about Malcolm X, we never hear about Martin Delaney, we never hear about black men who really came through and did their thing in a major way, right? They were written out of the historical text. So on my channel, what I've done, in case you didn't know, in case you are new here, if you go to my playlist section, you see I have a variety of playlists, right? You got one that's called The History of Haiti, you got another one that's called The Most Powerful Black Man of the Last 500 Years, right? And that is basically a documentary, a multi-part series of the life and the reign and the time when King Henry Christophe was on the throne, when black men was really out here doing their thing in a major way. I titled it The Most Powerful Black Man of the Last 500 Years for a reason, man. So before anything, man, go check out that playlist to get a deep dive, to get a deep summary, to get a deep understanding of this time in history, right? This legendary time in black history. When it comes to King Henry Christophe, I am the #1 historian when it comes to that topic, man. And honestly, man, I think that should be a source of inspiration for black men all over the world. A black man who marched on the front lines against multiple European powers, never lost his life, never was defeated, never was arrested, never was overthrown by his enemies. The Europeans never touched him. And when they sent an agent in 1814, he lost his life and they never retaliated. So at the end of the day, man, we got to study black men like this. We got to study black men like this. And I felt it was my duty to not only resurrect his legacy, but also correct some of the false narratives that the Europeans have disseminated in the historical text, right? So we had to correct a lot of errors that the enemies made. And thankfully, the one thing I love about the fact that I have over 200 news articles stretching over 10 years is the fact that the ancestors left direct written text for us to go back to, right? I love that, man. I love that because globally, as an entire race of people, our history gets lost over the generations because we have a culture of oral history, things like that. Even if you go back to the Egyptian hieroglyphics, we can't read none of that. We can't read none of that. Sometimes the libraries were burned. Sometimes documents got lost, things like that. So when it comes to the Haitian Revolution, we have an extensive amount of writings, an extensive amount of letters written down. So many letters, so many documents, so many articles, so many testimonies, so many people wrote books during the time. I'm telling you, bro, we have an abundance of information, right? So, you know, they can never write us out the historical text, man. They can never write that part of history out of the historical text because it's too much information floating around, man. Like I said, I got over 200 newspaper articles from that time period just available, man. But y'all gotta go back and watch the playlist, The Most Powerful Black Man of the Last 500 Years, and then go to my other playlist, The History of Haiti, before you dive into these newspaper articles. Because if you don't have that foundation, these articles are not gonna make sense. You're not gonna be able to put the pieces together. So let's jump into it, man. In this article, we're gonna talk about the legendary Toussaint and Dessalines, right? This article was published under the government of King Henry Christophe, I believe in the year 1816. Yeah, I believe around summer of 1816. And before we jump into it, I got the summary on the screen. And I want to give a shout out to the National Library of France for keeping this document. This is the source. This is the source from where this document is coming from. So like I said before, man, documents and artifacts from the Haitian revolutionary time period, they are all over the place. I remember one of the articles I read was in the National Library of Ireland. Another one, the National Library of Britain, right? Another one was the American something Society. And now this one, the National Library of France. It's all over the place, man. And then we got stuff down in the Library of Congress in Washington. It's crazy, man. It's crazy, man. But anyways, let's get into it, man. The summary, let's read it together. August 27th, 1816. The primary article of this issue reveals to a large extent the northern government's attitude towards Christophe's antecedents, Toussaint Louverture and Jacques Dessalines, praising the former by noting that Louverture had virtues, genius, and a talent for governing, but simultaneously seeming to explain the former general's deadly fate. Vasty writes that Louverture failed because he lacked the necessary experience that Haitians of the Christophe era had acquired in the course of their dealings with the duplicity of the French. As for Dessalines, he is praised as well for being the one to proclaim and make into a reality Haitian independence. However, Vasty also infers that while Dessalines may have been a more competent soldier, his governing skills were lacking, which led to a general demoralization of both the citizenship and the military under his rule. A list of all the foreign ships arriving and leaving Haiti, which appears at the end of the issue, continues to demonstrate the northern states' robust involvement in international trade. Now, man, like I said before, King Henry Christophe was the first black billionaire in the Western Hemisphere for a reason. And I know in the European point of view, they say that Haiti was embargoed, Haiti was, you know what I mean? Haiti was under blockade, people didn't want to trade. But at the end of the day, if this was the richest colony on the planet, supplying the world with so many goods that it needs to function, right? A major supplier of so many products, right? Do you think that they're going to stop coming to the plug to get what they need? No, they're just going to get it under the table. They're just going to get it off the books. It is what it is, man. Like the last sentence said, it demonstrates the state's robust involvement in international trade. Just because we don't have official international relations on paper, that don't mean that I'm not sending my ships to the dock to pick up that coffee and sugar and everything in between. In fact, if you watch my last video, when I read a newspaper article from 1814, the legendary story about the King of Haiti celebrating Independence Day in 1814, you know that there were foreigners present at the celebrations. There were Americans there, there were Swedes there, there were Spaniards there, and there was another one, I forget. But yeah, it was Englishmen as well. So all of these men that were at the festivities, they were the captains, the merchants, the ones who were involved in direct trade in the kingdom. And in fact, they actually gave a speech of which I read in that video. So go back to that video. I'm telling you, man, black men was doing it big back in the day, man. Black men ain't never did it that big since then. So yeah, man, at the end of the day, there was a lot of under the table trade going on with Haiti. Of course, not internationally recognized, not formally recognized, but listen, they still had to pull up for the coffee and the sugar and everything in between, bro. Everything in between. You saw the castle, you see the castle, you see the citadel. How do you think that was built? How do you think that was built if there was not any cash flow, any trade with the outside world? Of course, bro. Of course. And on top of that, the majority of the population was already familiar with agriculture, farming, and growing their own food. So the nation was largely self-sufficient during that time, and the cash flow was very heavy. And there was no debt during that time. As we know, Christophe died in 1820. And even though the French sent a government official in 1814, and he ended up losing his life when he was exposed to be a spy, the French never sent a ship, they never sent a boat, they never sent a letter, they never sent a note, they never sent any word, any message over to the Haitian government after they sent Franco de Medina, that French spy, over, and he lost his life. He got imprisoned and he was executed. The French never retaliated for that offense. Christophe spent the next 6 years on the throne. That happened in 1814. He passed away 1820. The French never came. Not a single European power ever came when Christophe was on the throne. He died a multi-billionaire untouched. The Europeans could never touch him. The Europeans could never smack him. The Europeans could never shoot him. And that's why they wrote him out the historical text. But I took it upon myself to resurrect the big homie. You know what I mean? Resurrect the big chief and resurrect his legacy and clean up the false narratives. And I think if Christophe was taught in schools, man, I'm telling you, man, black boys would grow up. It would be a different type of black man walking around if he learned about King Henry Christophe when he was around the age of 8, 9, 10. When they were teaching us about George Washington, and instead of that, they taught us about King Henry Christophe, I'm telling you, it would have been a different type of black man walking around right now. But anyways, man, you know, it is what it is. Just like they don't teach us about Marcus Garvey, the same reason they don't teach us about any of the legendary black men that came and they preach self-sufficiency, independence, and doing for yourself and riding for your people. They never gonna teach us about those black men, so it's up to us to keep those legacies alive, right? So anyways, man, let's jump into the article, not wasting no time. The article starts out with the headline, Freedom, Independence, or Death. August 27th, 1816, 13th year of independence. Unity is strength. All peoples, therefore, follow impulse given to them by the great men who govern them. They acquire their virtues or their vices, their activities or their softness, enlighten themselves or fall into ignorance. In a word, people are what government want them to be, virtuous or vicious, brave or cowardly, enlightened or ignorant, just as those who govern them are themselves. It is in this way that the people of Haiti follow the impulse given to them by King Henry, the founder of their political and warlike institutions, and it is to him that our posterity will be indebted for their greatness and their illustration. To fix the judgment of my readers on the immense steps that the Haitian people have made in civilization since the foundation of the monarchy, I will begin by sketching what was its moral and political situation under Toussaint Louverture and Dessalines. Far be it from me to want to exalt the virtues and glory of King Henry at the expense of those of his predecessors. It is too common in the age in which we live to decry the dead in order to flatter the living. Guided by the love of my country, having no other goal than the general good, my pen will be directed by the truth and the impartiality which must always characterize the patriotic writer. Now, time out. I believe the author of this article is Baron de Vasti, the secretary to the king, his right-hand man, the young boy. I talk about Vasti a lot. In fact, if you go to my playlist section, you'll see I have one entitled Memoirs from the Haitian Revolution by Baron de Vasti. I actually read a book that he wrote, his autobiographical account of the Haitian revolutionary years, written from his point of view, right? So he's a character, he's an ancestor that I respect a lot. You know, he's a mulatto that I respect a lot. Probably my favorite mulatto because he always stayed loyal to the cause. He never switched sides, always stayed loyal to the very end. In fact, when Christophe died and the mulattoes took over, because in case you didn't know, during that time when Christophe was reigning, he was in charge of the northern section of Haiti, which was called the Kingdom of Haiti. And the mulattoes, the mulatto generals from the south, they had what was called the Republic of Haiti, right? But Baron de Vasti, he was up north with Christophe. He was Christophe's right-hand man, and he was a mulatto. And when Christophe died, when Christophe passed away, and the mulattoes from the south took over the entire country, right? They took over the entire island, in fact. After they took over Christophe's territory in the north, they went into the Dominican Republic and took over that territory over there in the east, and they held power over the entire region for over 2 decades. But when Christophe died, it was said that Vasti was actually put to death shortly afterwards due to the fact that he was a high-ranking official in Christophe's government, and the two rival factions, the North and the South, he was seen as an enemy to the Southern generals, especially since Vasti constantly put out literature, constantly put out articles, constantly put out messages across the world slandering the government of the South, slandering the generals of the South. Man, Vasti went on a slander campaign against the generals of the South. Now, he was spitting facts, though. He was telling the truth. The generals of the South, they was on some bullshit. But because of the fact that Vasti for so long was using his pen to smash the generals of the South, destroy their reputation in the eyes of the international community, when Christophe died and his kingdom was overran by the Southern generals, Vasti, he was put to death. But they said that when Vasti was put to death, bro, he didn't go out like a punk, man. They said Vasti went out like a G, man. They said Vasti went out like a G. And I believe that Vasti died at a very young age, if I'm not mistaken. I believe that he was born in the year 1781 and he died in the year 1820. So that would be about 39 years old. That'll put him about 39 years old. And when Haiti got its independence in 1804, Vasti was in his early 20s. So that's why I call him the young boy. And he was the right-hand man to the king. So anyways, man, we always got to give love to Baron de Vasti. You know what I mean? Big ancestor, big chief. Got love for Baron de Vasti. Anyways, man, let's get back into it, man. Let's get back into the article. Toussaint Louverture and Dessalines also have their titles to achieve posterity. All that they have done useful and great for their country belongs to them, deserves our recognition and our just tribute of praise. And King Henry, surrounded by the fruit of his own labors and his own glory, does not need to usurp their honors to achieve immortality. Toussaint had virtues, genius, and talents for governing, but he lacked the experience that we have acquired through time and the revolutions that we have experienced. still imbued with the prejudices of the old regime and the fanaticism that the priest had instilled in him, Toussaint could not free himself completely. Made of this odious yoke, he had preserved a particular predilection for our tyrants, circumvented and dominated by them in all his actions. They led him from error to error and dragged him down to ruin. This predilection, I say, which he had for our tyrants, became injurious to his fellow citizens and caused them, at different periods, the greatest prejudices. With such principles, Toussaint Louverture was powerless, never to be able to do anything great for the country. Under Toussaint, everything tended to approach the old order of things. The administration of finance and civil matters were entirely entrusted to the ex-colonists under regulations almost as harsh as those of the old regime. Culture flourished and the ex-settlers were masters of all their property. The government, under their immediate influence, was directed according to their interests and their cupidity. Only the shadow of freedom existed, but the ex-colonists did not even want to see the shadow, which offended them, which prevented them from being able to torture us and to snatch our lives at will, as in 1789. As for us, content to enjoy this glimmer of freedom, we allowed ourselves to be led peacefully under the cane, so to speak, of the ex-colonists. No idea of independence had yet entered our minds yet, nor had the thought occurred to any of us that we could be equally free and independent. Now, time out. We're not here to throw dirt on the legacy of Toussaint Louverture. We already know one of the greatest military minds that ever lived, one of the greatest generals that ever walked the earth. We understand, but he was not a perfect man, right? Now, in this article, Baron de Vasti is saying that, as we know, Toussaint tried to play that fine line. He tried to somehow pull off that balancing act where you try to ride for your people, you try to put in work for your people, but at the same time, you still gotta, balance the interests of the international community and the European powers, while at the same time trying not to get arrested or assassinated. And essentially, what Baron de Vasti is saying is, because Toussaint tried to balance all these various opposing interests, he essentially could not really do anything of great magnitude because he didn't choose a side. You got to pick a side, right? You got to pick a side, man. You either riding with the black men riding for freedom and liberty and justice, or you riding with the white boys to get rich and keep our people on the fields. You got to pick a side, man. You got to pick a side. Now, I don't want y'all to think that Toussaint Louverture was a punk. There's this narrative that Toussaint Louverture was just some weak ass dude. No, it wasn't that, bro. It wasn't that. If you pissed Toussaint off, he would have you executed within the next 24 hours. Like, it wasn't like he was just a pushover. No. Toussaint even had Frenchmen arrested. It wasn't like he was scared to go against the Frenchmen. Like, you know how black men are today. Black men only aggressive against other black men. No, Toussaint would execute and arrest a Frenchman. In fact, there's been stories, as you know, Sonthonax, Thomas Edouville. There were multiple French government officials that came to the colony and they were ran out by Toussaint. They ran for their lives. Leger Sonthonax, he ran on the damn ship, ran back to France. Thomas Edouville in the late 1790s hopped on the ship, ran back to France because Toussaint had a bag on his head. He had a price on his head. Listen, if I catch you in these streets, nigga, it's over for you. So yeah, a lot of Frenchmen ended up hopping on boats, running out of the colony because Toussaint wanted their head. So I'm not gonna let y'all think that Toussaint Louverture was just a weak black man. No, it wasn't that. It was just he was trying to pull off that balancing act, right? He was trying to pull off that balancing act to where we could be autonomous, but at the same time, we don't gotta push direct hostilities against the European powers. But at the same time, you gotta pick a side, bro. It's either slavery or freedom, man. It's either slavery or freedom. Either we're gonna be free black men doing our thing, or we're gonna be, black men that are compromised. That, like, pick a side. So honestly, Toussaint Louverture, the reason why, as Baron de Vasti said, they led him down to his ruin, because he could not pick a side. You cannot pull that balancing act off. For example, take Barack Obama. Barack Obama picked his side. Barack Obama said, listen, I'm going to do whatever the white boys tell me to do. I'm not going to do anything revolutionary at all. You see, Barack Obama was intelligent in the fact that he picked a side. Whereas Toussaint Louverture, he was like, okay, listen, I'm going to negotiate with the white boys. I'm going to see if we could talk things out. But at the same time, I'm still going to, try to push for freedom with my folks. And at the same time, if the white boys give me trouble, then I'm gonna raise an army against them. But at the same time, I'm open to negotiations. So, Toussaint Louverture, it was a lot of contradiction in his message. So, it is what it is, man. But we're not gonna disrespect the ancestor at all. So let's continue. The article goes on to say, But the ex-colonists, who always want all or nothing, averted the loss of Toussaint, their protector, to reestablish again and with more rigor and horrors of slavery. They began by leading him to take fatal measures which would have alienated the spirit of the people from him, to induce him to destroy his own generals, while they acted at the same time in Europe to overrun our territory with the French army. At the moment when they held Toussaint in the most perfect security in this struggle, the unfortunate was their victim, but liberty remained triumphant. Today, Toussaint is the object of their praise and regret. Dessalines, placed more favorably, instructed by experience on the real interests of the people, enlightened by the flames of the stakes that the French had lit, could and had the means to do what he would have wanted, useful and wise for the country, but with warlike qualities and an ardent love for country. He lacked the genius which creates the legislator, and above all wisdom, which is the first virtue of kings. However, he rendered signal services to his country. He purged the soil of Haiti of its oppressors, and he proclaimed the act of our immortal independence. It was already a great step towards civilization, but how far we were still from the goal we should strive to attain. Then we acquired the experience that other virtues than military talents were needed to govern the people. It happened to us what almost always happens to men who launch themselves into a career which is unknown to them: to be mistaken, to go astray at the first step. The spirit of imitation, which leads almost all people, led us to model ourselves on a government, the forms and sumptuous title of which would not all suit us. In the short space of the reign of Dessalines, there was a general laxity in the various branches of government. Everything became demoralized, and the spirit of debauchery and indiscipline that we had acquired in the camps with the French completed the total corruption of our morals. Inhumanity, pillage, gambling, debauchery, licentiousness, the most unbridled passions agitated us and showed themselves in the open. It is at this time forever deplorable of our history that must date the beginning of the Second Civil War, known as of Pétion. It is essential to enlighten public opinion to make known the principle and cause of this horrible tragedy. Great truths can be useful to governments and to men, and can serve as a preservative to avoid many evils. Now, listen, like I said before, Baron de Vastille was always talking shit about the generals of the South. Even in this one right here, he says the reason why it was so much chaos shortly after the revolution and independence was secured during the reign of Dessalines was because he laid the blame at Pétion, Alexander Pétion, General Alexander Pétion. Yes, indeed. And that is why, like I said before, when the mulatto generals of the South took over Christophe's territory shortly after his death, Baron de Vastille was one of the first people to be put to death because, listen, he was putting out diss tracks damn near every month on their ass. Every month on their ass, he was putting out a diss track to the generals of the South, man. And they deserved it, though. The generals of the South, they deserved it. They deserved it. Fuck the generals of the South. And I say that as somebody whose family comes from the South. I'm a Southern boy. I ain't even from the North, but I got love for my boys up north. I got love for my brothers up north. All the legendary generals came from up north. Christophe, Dessalines, Toussaint, they all up north. So I got love for my brothers up north, man. You know, I can say it. The generals of the South was on some bullshit. They was on some bullshit, and Baron de Vastille, everything he said about them was facts. Everything he said about them was facts. And that's why when they took over, they killed him, because they know that everything he said about them was facts. Now, let's get back into the article. The article goes on to say, for the past 26 years, that is to say, since the dawn of the revolution, two distinct parties have been formed in Haiti. The Party of France, composed of white ex-colonists and a few men from free old color and blacks, dominated by prejudices and ruled above all by lively interests, and the Patriot Party, composed of the mass of the population, blacks and mulattoes. The latter wanted freedom, the first wanted slavery. Today, one wants to maintain the independence of the country as the only means of being able to preserve its political and individual existence. The other wants to bring the country back under the domination of the French. Now, time out. Like I said before, during this time, when Christophe was on the throne, he held power in the northern section of Haiti. The southern generals, mainly composed of big mulatto bosses down south, they controlled the southern portion. But like I said, Baron de Vastille himself, he is a mulatto, and he's the right-hand man to the king up north. So it wasn't a blacks versus mulatto thing. It was blacks and mulattoes on both sides. But like I said, like he said, it was two different parties. It was two different opposing factions. The northern faction, right? The ones that want to maintain liberty, independence, the Patriot Party, right? And then you got the ones down south. the party that Baron de Bastille calls the Party of France, right? So the Southern Mulatto generals, he calls them the Party of France, and up north, he calls them the Patriot Party. Now, of course, he's going to rep for his team. Baron de Bastille, of course, he's going to say that we are the Patriots. We are the ones standing for the country. And on the opposite end, the mulattoes of the South, they were saying the same thing. We are the ones standing for the country. It's politics, man. It's politics. Just like the Democrats and the Republicans, they say, oh, we know what's best for the country. We love the country. It is what it is, man. It's politics. You got to understand. It's media. It's propaganda. But it is what it is, man. During this time, it wasn't no social media. It wasn't CNN. It wasn't any, MSNBC. So only thing you had was written documents, written articles, literature, etc., etc. So let's get back into the article. The article goes on to say, such are the two distinct parties which have always divided us in the different revolutionary shocks which we have experienced. These parties have changed and adopted new forms and new qualifications without thereby changing their primitive system. They both also walk under other names and other forms, one to freedom and independence and the other to French rule and slavery. Beyond that, there was a continual struggle between freedom and slavery, a permanent fight between the patriots and the partisans of the French. These last, always hidden behind the curtain in all the phases of the revolution, made all their efforts either directly or indirectly to stop or to obstruct the march of the government as well as the Haitian people towards freedom and independence. They have never spared themselves trouble, care, or danger to divide us, mislead us, and lead us to take the wrong steps. Ghosts of Toussaint Louverture and Dessalines, you who have been their unfortunate victims, I invoke you to tell us how many traps they have given you, how many perfidious insinuations they have made to complete your ruin, and your generous monarch, defender of our freedom and our independence, you who have always known how to avoid their pitfalls and thwart their infamous projects, you can tell us how many traps they have set for you, how many perfidious insinuations they have made to lead to you and your downfall, and at the same time that of the Haitian people. He who once advised you to descend from your throne and relegate yourself to Turtle Island to get rid of your best friends and your most zealous defenders was one of those dishonorable men, those sinister advisors who cannot be your friends and never will be. Now, time out. Now, for those of y'all who, like I said, if you watch my playlist, The Most Powerful Black Man of the last 500 years, in my playlist section, you already know what the reference is when they say that when he was speaking to Christophe and they said that when they advise you to step from your throne and relegate yourself to Turtle Island, the King of France 2 years prior in 1814, this article was written in 1816. In 1814, remember, like I said, I dropped that video. The French had sent an ambassador that came as a spy from the French government. He came to gather information as well as open negotiations with Christophe. And one of the conditions that was laid out by the French government, one of the offers, I should say, was Christophe step down from the throne and assume the authority and acknowledge the authority of King Louis XVIII of France, right? And then relegate yourself to some obscure island, or if you want to go to France, or if you want to go to the United States and retire over there. They offered him that, right? And Christophe, of course, he rejected the offer because Christophe died on the throne 6 years later. So obviously Christophe never stepped down from the throne. But not only that, Christophe killed the French ambassador, like I said. So if you want to, learn more information about how King Henry Christophe killed the French ambassador and the French didn't even do shit afterwards. They didn't even defend their boy. They didn't even send a note or a letter to ask for the body back so his family could bury him. The French government sent their boy on a dummy mission and they couldn't even recover the body, because if they did, then that would force them to acknowledge the fact that they sent a spy into a foreign territory. So in order to cover their track, they let their own man get killed, didn't even get their body back, didn't even say nothing, let their own man rot in a Haitian prison in the Citadel. Let him rot up in the Citadel. Didn't even ask for the body back. Man, that's a shame. That's a shame, bro. Anyways, yeah, the French government had offered to Christophe to step down from the throne and relegate yourself to some obscure island. I don't know what Turtle Island is, but yeah, Christophe obviously rejected that offer and then he killed their mans. So anyways, let's get back into the article, man. The article goes on to say, it is to its invisible actors that we owe our errors, our troubles, and all our civil dissensions. Introduced into the body politic, they found themselves in all branches of government, where they were so much the more dangerous, as they played their roles under the mask of patriotism, always mingled in the two parties. They blew civil war on both sides, and with fury. It mattered little to them which way the Haitians fell. They always went to their goal, to our complete destruction. The greater our ills, the more they triumphed. the more joy and serenity were painted on their faces, and our blood always flowed too slowly for their liking. We met them in the sanctuary, in the civilian, in the military, in all classes of society. They agitated and collided with the patriots. From the clash of passions were born insurmountable difficulties. The action of the government, hampered on all sides by their intrigues, cannot take a direct march towards the good and the prosperity of the country. In the two different shocks which they aroused, the French party was always crushed by the Patriot party, stronger and more numerous. The mass of ex-colonists and their supporters were destroyed or driven out of the country. But there always remained some of them in the body politic who continued under the mask of patriotism to disturb us and to stop the course of our prosperity. It is this French party which is the author of all our civil wars, which caused floods of our blood to be shed with our own hands to restore the reign of prejudices and slavery on the debris of freedom and independence. Now listen, like I said, Baron de Bastille, he's talking about the Southern generals. When you hear him talk about the French party, he's not literally talking about the French people. He's talking about the sons of the French, the mulatto sons of the French from the South, right? That are trying to maintain the social customs and traditions of their fathers, the white Europeans from Paris, right? So Baron de Bastille calls them the French party. And when he says the Patriot party, he's talking about the mass of the people. He's talking about Christophe, the brothers up north, the former slaves, things like that, right? And he said each time that the French party collided with the Patriot party crushed the French party every time because they were stronger and more numerous, right? They had the mass of the population behind them, hundreds of thousands of people. The little French party, the little sons of the French, it was a little tiny minority population, right? So, of course, they got crushed every time in every single military engagement. They never won a damn thing. Even back in the original Civil War, 1799, the War of Knives. You could look that up. You could Google that. That got a Wikipedia page, right? So, listen, even back in the War of Knives, 1799, listen, them brothers down south always got smashed by the brothers up north. The brothers down south always got smashed by the brothers up north. It is what it is, man. And in fact, when the United States invaded Haiti in 1915, it was the brothers from up north that defended the national sovereignty for 4 years straight, going to battle against the U.S. Marines, bro. That's why I got love for my brothers up north, man. The brothers up north, at every single time, at every single point in history, it's always been them on the front lines with whatever weapon they got in their hand, defending the national sovereignty of the nation until the death. So shout out to the brothers up north, man. Shout out to the brothers up north. Let's get back into the article, man. It is this party which silently agitated the state under Dessalines. They arrived from France on all sides. They were received, welcomed, and protected by Dessalines. Even it was they who fomented the passions and united in silence the elements which were to lead him to his downfall. Now, time out. We already know that General Alexander Pétion, Southern mulatto general, he was the mastermind behind the assassination of Dessalines. And in this article, Baron de Bastille is laying the blame directly at the feet of the Southern mulatto generals, who he calls the party of the French party. That's why he said it was them who led him to his downfall. So I'm trying to, I know a lot of y'all did not go to my playlist section and watch my whole playlist, The Most Powerful Black Man of the Last 500 Years. So I gotta constantly stop and give y'all background because it might not be, information that y'all really understand. So like I said, go to my playlist section, dive in deep. So a lot of this can make sense to you. Some of y'all who already did that, I'm sure you have no problem understanding what's going on. But I know a lot of y'all are new. A lot of y'all are very new to the channel. So I'm trying to, you know what I mean? I'm trying to make things clear, trying to make things plain for y'all as well. So let's continue. The article goes on to say, they had neglected nothing to mislead him from the true road he should follow, and they fully succeeded in completing his ruin. It is then that a monster should always be summoned, recognized for having long been a zealous partisan of the French, for being the chief and the leader of this party, which was itself the first by its conduct, its advice, and its depraved morals to set an example and to excite that spirit of license, immorality, and disorder. It was then, I say, that this monster took advantage of the situation in which things were to assassinate his chief and his benefactor. Now right there, like I said, Baron de Bastille, this is a diss track to the Southern mulatto generals, man. This is a diss track. He straight up said it was y'all who killed Dessalines. He straight up said it was y'all. You assassinated your own chief and your benefactor. Nigga, you a bitch. Like, that's basically what Baron de Bastille is saying. Nigga, y'all some bitch ass niggas down south. You know what I'm saying? Y'all some bitch ass niggas. Hey, it is what it is, man. Let's continue. The article goes on to say, however, the event which had brought about this fatal catastrophe would not have had any other consequences if the author of this first attack had not wanted to commit a second, to usurp the first authority and thus to spare himself the means to be able to carry out his infamous projects to ignite the Civil War and to bring back the population under the yoke of France and slavery. It is necessary to have only the simple data of common sense to be convinced of these great truths. He had pretext the disorder which reigned in government to commit the first crime. What pretext could he have for wanting to commit such a horrible second crime? Had Henry usurped the authority? Did he even ask? No. Now, time out. When Baron de Bastille says the first crime and the second crime, he's talking about General Alexander Pétion. The first crime was the assassination of Dessalines. After Dessalines was eliminated, Alexander Pétion wanted to eliminate King Henry Christophe to move him out the way so he can assume supreme authority, right? So that's why Baron de Bastille is asking in this article, what did Christophe do to deserve you making him a target for your wrath, making him a target for elimination, right? Because there was kind of a pretext to move Dessalines out the way because there were many high-ranking government officials who were not happy with his government, with his politics, with his policies, right? But Christophe had not even spent a single week in power, and Pétion was already plotting his overthrow as well. So that's why Baron de Bastille had asked, on what grounds did you have to commit the second crime? Did you even ask? No. So anyways, let's continue, man. The article goes on to say, since the reins of government had devolved upon him by the unanimous wishes of the chiefs and the people of the 3 provinces of the kingdom, as general-in-chief of the army and as the senior general of Haiti, did Christophe abuse his powers? No, since he had not yet governed the state. What causes, what reasons, what motives, powerful enough, legitimate enough, did they exist to induce a people of brothers to take up arms and slaughter one another? None without doubt. Didn't we have every right to hope from the government of a virtuous leader who had always resisted corruption, who, being a simple colonel, brigadier general, division general, and then general-in-chief of the army, had always given the example of the virtues, good morals, and discipline? There was therefore no legitimate cause which could have led us to this cruel extremity. Christophe was black, and he wanted the freedom of his brothers and the independence of his country, and Pétion was French. He wanted to bring the country back under the yoke of France and slavery. Such is the origin and the cause of our civil wars and our misfortunes. Woo! Baron de Bastille. Hey, listen, hold up, man. Let me pour some liquor for the ancestors, man. Let me drop some water for the ancestors, man. Yeah, let me drop some water for the ancestors, man. Big up to Baron de Bastille. Big up. You see, this is why we gotta write everything down. This is why we gotta write things down for our descendants to come back. We gotta leave them documents, written accounts, man, because God forbid the ancestors did not write all these articles and all. Man, I'm telling you, I got over 200 articles. This newspaper came out every week on a subscription basis. And the price for this newspaper article during the time was like 12 goods per year or per month. I forget what it was. I don't even know how much that was back then, but yeah, this was a subscription based newspaper that was released every week on a weekly basis. A new article came out, a new publication came out, and yeah, man, I got a lot, but yeah, let's continue. Towards the end of the article, there is attached an anonymous letter. Nobody knows who wrote this, but apparently it's somebody who wrote it from the town of Le Cai. That is a town deep in the southern regions of Haiti. I'm assuming this was a spy or someone working on the behalf of the northern Haitian government. And in this letter, they are giving an account of what they've seen in their travels, right? And then after that, there's a list of ships that are currently docked at the Haitian ports, right? American ships, British ships, things like that. So listen, we're going to finish up the article. Let's get into it. The article continues and it says, for some time, there have been great rumors in this town among the people and the troops. The patriots of the South complain bitterly of the equivocal behavior of Pétion with the French. They are tired of being under the degrading yoke of this traitor. Before long, we will see great events break out, and the men of the South, who do not lack energy, will be the first to free themselves from this dishonorable state in which Pétion holds them, to embrace the cause of King Henry, who is that of freedom and independence. There was also a rumor that French agents had arrived at Port-au-Prince, but they did not yet dare show themselves openly. They kept themselves hidden at Pétion's house. Anyways, interesting. Anyways, a list of some of the ships that were currently at the docks on August 1816. The English brig Mary, under the command of William Fletcher, headed for London. The American ship Almira, under the command of Captain George Kinloch, headed for Charleston. The American ship Mary, under the command of Captain John White, headed from North Carolina. The Concordia boat, under the command of Francis West. The American boat Pegasus, under the command of Captain Copeland, headed for Philadelphia. The English boat Swift, under the command of J.W. Hall, for New Providence. The American ship the Ditto, under the command of Captain Nagel, headed for Baltimore. The American ship Fox, under the command of Captain Ducart, headed for Baltimore. The English ship Marian Elizabeth, under the command of Captain Fulford, headed for Jamaica. The American ship Ditto, under the command of Captain Silsbeck, headed for Boston. The American ship Malvina, under the command of Captain John Hunt, headed for New York. And right under that list, there is I guess you could say a menu, the current price of the goods, right? Coffee going for 9 cents per pound. Cotton going for 16 goods per quintai. Raw sugar, 8 goods. Cocoa, 6 cents per pound. Molasses, 50 cents at a Velt. Flour, 14 goods per barrel. Red wine, 50 goods per barrel. Herring, 6 goods per barrel. Corned beef, 14 goods. Candles, 36 cents per pound. Soap, 20 cents per pound, etc., etc., etc. Listen, man, we was getting to the bread, man. We was getting to the bread. And the white boys talking about they had us under embargo. Why was so many American ships chilling in the dock? Why was so many British ships chilling in the dock? I thought we was under embargo. But you see, nah, bro, we had everything for sale, my boy. I just didn't want to bore y'all with that long list of products, but listen, it's a very long list, bro. And yes, as you can see by the amount of ships that were chilling in the docks in August 1816. Hey, man, listen, bro, we was getting to the money, man. It's the reason why Christoph died a multi-billionaire. It's the reason why he built all these crazy monuments all over the country, man. Hey, listen, I'm gonna pour some liquor. Let me pour some water. You know what I'm saying? Let me pour some water and pour some liquor for the ancestors, man, for doing it bigger than we ever seen anybody do it ever since they walked the earth, man. Listen, it's your boy Neferkari Dessalines back in the building. Yes, indeed. Like, share, subscribe, Cash App in the description. And I'm gone. Peace.